What's up, guys? Today we've got a quick overview for you on the new revised version of the Bantam ALW-C with a longer handle, as well as the brand new ESQ-C. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down the differences between the two, but primarily focusing on the new ESQ. While these are both great paddles, I do question why PaddleTek chose the route that they did for them, but we'll talk about that more in just a minute. As a disclosure, PaddleTek did send these to me for free, but they did not pay for the review. No review was guaranteed. They had no input on the video, and all thoughts are my own. I do have an affiliate link and discount code in the description, but PaddleTek says they are doing away with those codes in late November, so if you do plan to pick one of these up, you'll want to do it before that time comes. PaddleTek has also decided to raise the price of these paddles from $230 to $250. While overall I can still recommend these even at that price, I do think it makes it a much tougher pill to swallow. Previously, after discount code PB Studio, the price would come down to about $207, which for the performance I feel was very reasonable. Going up another $20 is not a massive jump, but I do feel like it takes it from an easy recommendation to, you might want to think about it a little bit. Either way, you really don't have a lot of options similar to these on the market, so if you do really enjoy them, you'll just be stuck with the higher price. I suppose the redeeming factor for PaddleTek is the lifetime warranty, and you shouldn't struggle with the same type of core issues that you do with thermoform power paddles, which is nice. So ultimately, it's going to be up to you whether you think it's worth it or not. All right, the two changes to the ALW are that they made the butt cap octagon, which has also increased the length of the handle, taking it from 5 inches to 5.25 inches, and now the butt cap isn't that awkward nub that it used to be. This was something a lot of people wanted to see. It's become kind of a trend to have a longer handle on a standard shape or wide body paddle, especially with everyone starting to use more of a two-handed backhand. The other change is that they added the same weights that were in the TKO-CX to the ALW models. Though I do find it odd that PaddleTek's marketing claims this is a carbon steel plate. I did take the edge guard off of one of my ALWs, and it's just the same fishing weight that was in the TKO-CX. So I'm not really sure why PaddleTek feels the need to advertise this differently, and I feel like it's just not very appreciated to find something different in the paddle. While the end result may be identical, I just find it odd. I feel like no one would really care if they advertise this properly, which is like a lead fishing weight, or at least that's what a lot of you in the comments have told me prior. So I don't know, just slightly odd in my opinion. But anyways, those are the only two updates to the ALW-C, which are very welcome changes in my opinion, especially the added handle length. Now here's where I get a little confused. I was actually a very big champion for the ESQ-C before it came out. When I saw that PaddleTek had a longer handle version of the ALW-C, I thought it would be an absolute home run. I even gave that feedback to them. And I still think it's a welcome addition, but now that they've increased the handle length of the ALW, there's a lot more overlap between these two paddles than previously. In fact, the only difference is the taper of the neck, which gives you a little bit more handle length, and the ESQ is 0.1 inches wider than the ALW, but they both share the same length of 15.9 inches. So yes, you do technically get a small amount more handle on the ESQ, which is noticeable, but the difference between them is not gigantic. In my opinion, if you're choosing between them, it's basically going to come down to, do you want the absolute longest handle you can get or not? I feel like had they left the handle alone on the ALW and released the ESQ, now you would please all the people that wanted a longer handle, but you also keep the people who like short handles happy with the ALW. Because previously the ALW was a 5-inch handle, so now you would have 5 inches versus 5.5 rather than 5.25 versus 5.5. So I really feel like they should have created greater distinction between these paddles, because with how much overlap there is, it makes it a lot more confusing on which one you should grab. But anyways, that's my rant about PaddleTek's decision making. Now let's talk about some of the other specs. One fantastic thing about the original ALW is that it was so versatile. The paddle has a low static weight, a low balance, and a low swing weight, which gives you a lot of options to customize it with weighted tape, or if you just like light paddles, well, then it's light. And I'm glad to see that that hasn't changed with the updated ALWs, and with the ESQ, the swing weights, balance, and static weight are all still really low. All of my units were less than 107 for swing weight and with lower than normal balance points, which just means that these are going to be incredibly fast at the net and great for players that are super wristy or need a lighter paddle to maneuver. And like I said before, it's great for people who like customizing because you can add a significant amount of weighted tape to this and still have it be fast in the hand without going way overboard. When a paddle starts at like a 125 swing weight, it's really hard to add any weight because it's already so heavy. With these being so light and a low swing weight, you can really do whatever you want to this paddle. So that alone is a huge perk and something that I think a lot of people will appreciate. Especially because this isn't thermoformed and that sweet spot is going to be smaller, being able to add some weighted tape at the edges to increase the stability will probably be recommended for most people. One final note, it does look like PaddleTek has removed the option to choose your grip circumference. All paddles now default to 4.25 inches, and they no longer offer the thinner 4-inch grip on the ALW. So for those of you who really liked having a thinner grip option, unfortunately that option is gone now. All right, now talking about the performance of the paddle, if you guys have watched my review of the ALW-C and the TKO line of paddles, you really aren't going to find a lot of new information in terms of performance in this video. And if you do want a full breakdown, I'd recommend going and watching my original review. Another thing that I think makes choosing between the ALW and ESQ difficult is that they play very, very similar. You might get a marginally larger sweet spot out of the ESQ due to the added width and the twist weight being slightly higher, but pop and power-wise, they're so close that you aren't going to make a huge sacrifice by picking one or the other, which again, I think is going to contribute to choosing between either of these paddles more difficult. If I had to give an edge to pop and power, it would probably be the ALW, but again, it's such a small difference that both of these are still power paddles, and you're talking probably about a few percentage points at best. Both of these paddles especially excel at the net for counters and putaways. Despite their Gen 1 construction with no foam, these are some of the hardest hitting paddles on the market. Even from the baseline, the ball still comes up on people fast, and that's with an incredibly low swing weight. You could easily pack an even bigger punch on drives by just adding some weighted tape to these. In fact, that's exactly what Anna Lee does because she wraps the entire head with 0.5 gram weighted tape. I think one of the things that makes these paddles so special is how uniquely versatile they are. Generally speaking, when you have a low swing weight, you're going to struggle with power. Despite being so light, these really don't have that issue, and if you want it even more, well, feel free to add some weighted tape. The biggest area I think people are going to struggle with these is when it comes to control, and that's for two reasons. First, these are very poppy paddles, which is not usually very friendly for the soft game, especially for non-advanced players. Second, the sweet spot is just not as large as a lot of paddles on the market these days, especially ones that have edge foam. As I was testing the ESQ and ALW again, I was just reminded how rough it can be when you hit that top portion of the paddle. On a lot of thermoform paddles, I'm used to still being able to get the ball over or it at least feeling a little better. On these two paddles, the ball pretty much just died. Because of having a smaller sweet spot and being poppy, you will just need to be more precise at hitting the center than a lot of other standard or wide body shaped paddles on the market right now. That doesn't mean you can't use one, I just think people will struggle to control it more so than a lot of other standard and wide body shaped paddles. The upside is very high, but if you aren't able to dial in the soft game, your lows are going to be pretty low. These paddles are best suited for players who like to be extra aggressive, and that's for both variants. Even the 14.3mm still packs a very good punch, even though it's toned down and easier to use than the 12.7mm. Overall, I think the 14.3 is going to be the most player-friendly, but if you want all gas and no brakes, the 12.7mm is what you want, and that's personally what I prefer when using either of these paddles. I just love the way the ball comes off the 12.7mm. It's very crisp, it's fast, it feels good, the sound. Pretty much everything about it is a lot of fun, but I do acknowledge that I probably don't play my best pickleball with it. While it's extremely fun and I love it, I think there's a lot of other paddles I probably play better with overall. All right, so to wrap this up, just like my review before, I think these are some of the best power paddles you can buy in pickleball right now. But not only that, I think these are some of the most versatile, being that they start lightweight, low swing weight, and low balance. It's hard to argue the performance of these, and I think the Bantam line is one of the best series released this year, and now you have the updated and newer options for the more modern game with the longer handles on the ESQ and ALW. So if you're an aggressive player who loves standard shapes and has a larger budget, I can easily recommend these. Choose the ESQ if you want as long of a handle as you can get, and if you don't really care about long handles and you want it to be slightly shorter, then the ALW is going to be what you want. Personally, for me, I would probably choose the ESQ because I do like having just a little bit more room on my handles, and that extra width did seem to be nice for the sweet spot, but honestly, I think you could make the sweet spots pretty comparable overall just by adding different weighted tape. While I really wish they had made them more distinctly different, I suppose it's always nice to have options regardless. So there you guys go. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one.